All right, we're doing social studies part three. I guess the first one had my face, but no notes. The next one had no notes. This one has face. I don't know which you like better, but hey, here we go. We're talking about the Salem witch trials and everything is where we're going to start today. I know everybody immediately you want to put in your own, Sweet Plains joke right here about somebody, but the thing about the witches and everything, there was actually a fear of witches in England and everything. Between 1400 and 1600, there were 50,000 people burned at the stake for being a witch in England. It was a fear that they had, and what happens is in 1486, it is made worse by a book that is published. The book that comes out is a guide to finding witches and everything. And the book causes a lot of innocent people to be put to death and everything. The book gave clues on how to determine if someone was a witch. One of the first things you could do is called look for the devil's mark. And it would be a birthmark that's a round shape and everything. It's just a round little birthmark on you, um, about that size. Um, Sadly, at this time, 5% of people were born with a birthmark like this. And so people that had this had to keep it hidden, had to keep it covered because you didn't want people to see that and all of a sudden accuse you of being a witch or anything. And so they would look for this devil's mark on your body. The next one they would do, they would take a stick pin and they would stick it in you. And if you didn't bleed, you were a witch. And here's the thing about that. If you look at, like, I'm a guy who goes barefoot all summer long and everything, and have since I was a kid. And my heels, and if I don't know if you've ever seen anybody that their heels get like this, it's real, just like crusted over, it's hard and everything. You could take a stick pin and stick in my heel over and over, and you're not going to get any blood. Why? Because you're in that calloused part. Or have you ever seen somebody's thumbs or things like that, and they get calloused over, and you stick a pin in it? So, I mean, it depends where you stick the pin on whether you're going to decide this person. So I guess it's up to the judge. If you want to stick it in the meaty flesh, oh, they're not a witch. Or if you didn't like them, stick it in the wart right there, and then oh, they're a witch. And so there's really no science or any kind of even biblical thing to deal with this at all. The only thing it says in Exodus, and that's where a lot of the things comes from. It says in Exodus that you shouldn't suffer a witch to live because he didn't want them intermingling and intermarrying with the Israelites. And so it was, they immediately thought, well, if you got any of these stuff, we need to kill you. Um, One of the other things they would do is called swimming a witch. And I don't know the science on this one at all, but they would take a lady, they accuse her of a witch, they take her down to the shore, and they would throw her in. Now you've heard people talk in the Bible about the Jesus refers to himself as the water of life and stuff like that, and there's always the water and stuff like that. Well, they say the water is pure, and so if she's so evil and she's such a bad witch and everything, the water being pure will reject her and she will float to the top. Well, here's the problem with that. That means that if you're a good person, you sank to the bottom and stayed down there, which means you did. But if you tried to come up, then even though you're a good person, well, then you floated to the top. You're a witch. We're going to kill you. So it's not a 50-50 on this. It is literally a 100% chance you going to die. Because if you stay at the bottom, you were pure. We really appreciate that. And you're dead. You drown. And if you were a witch, well, then you'll float to the top. You'll live right then, but then we will warm you up very quickly by burning you at the stake. You can see where it gets to be 50,000 people during this time, during those couple hundred years, because, the method of determining a witch wasn't exactly up to snuff where it should have been. Another one, I love this one too, is you take a witch over to the cliff, and if you throw her off and everything, well, witches will fly with brooms and stuff. So if she's a witch, she's going to fly off. And then y'all got guns standing there, and you're going to try and shoot her down and take her down. If she's not a witch, she just fell off a cliff. So it's another one of these 100%. I don't think there's ever any recollection of anybody flying away and having to get shot. But they were ready for you. They were ready for you in case that was going to happen. But No, throwing them off a cliff, I don't think that's a scientific approach, but it is the 100% approach to somebody gonna die. I will have to tell you a funny one right here because we're talking about swimming a witch. The year that I was teaching my daughter Kelby, she was in 8th grade and everything. That summer, we were at the pool, and I've got a wicked sense of humor at times that you can't tell. My wife jumps into the pool, and I went, "Hey, Salem's right. She floats." And Kelby had that lesson. Yeah, that didn't go well. That didn't go well. So, yeah, don't try that joke. But if you got a sister or something like that next time at the pool, that's funny. I'm just saying, I stand by that. That's funny. That's funny. Salem was right. She floats. All right. The next way that they would be able to determine if you were a witch is if we tortured a witch long enough, she will confess. If you torture anybody long enough, they'll confess. If you tortured me long enough, I'll confess to being skinny. You tortured me long enough, I'll confess to about anything you want to. So I don't know if this falls into the scientific jargon either as a great way to determine if there's a witch. Another one was the dunking stool. They would take a chair, have it tied to a big long pole, and once again, it's the concept of water is pure. They would hold her under for a minute or so, bring her up, and you ask her, "Are you a witch?" And if she said no, well, the water's pure. Hold her under again. Keep her for about a minute. Bring her up. If she asks her if she's a witch, if she says no, hold her under again. Are you starting to see that after a while, you hold me underwater enough, I'll confess whatever you want. I'll confess to being on fire if you're holding me under the water. I'll confess to that at that point. So I don't know if any of these really are gonna make the medical journals, but the last one, my poor dog is over there right now. It's called a witch's cake. They would take some urine from the person, some pee, from the person that they accused of being a witch, and they'd mix it with some rye and bake it into a little piece of bread and throw it down. And if the dog started to eat it and everything, and he spit it out, you're a witch. Well, you just fed the dog urine. I mean, I'm sure. I don't know. I'm sure I'm spitting that out at any point. You feed anybody a cake with human urine in it, yeah, they're gonna spit it out. Even the dog goes back in the corner and starts licking his behind again because like I can get that taste out of my mouth. That was just, that ain't right. So yeah. I don't know if this book is any scientific help, but it did start off a hysteria that eventually spreads to Salem. Salem is not the first town this happens in, and a witch being hung, not the hysteria. 1648 in Charlestown, Massachusetts, a lady named Margaret was hung because they found the birthmark on her that I'm talking about. I can explain more of that when we get back and everything. Now, Salem, it is a small town. It's about 6 miles from the coast and everything, and that's where the problem's going to happen in 1692. It's a Puritan town, and here's the thing that you need to know about the town. The town had just gone into a split and had a lot of people mad at each other and hating each other because there was a church split. There was Reverend Samuel Parris, and he was one of the church people, and then Reverend Burroughs was another one. And the church splits, and half goes with Burroughs, half goes with Parris. And so the town is already on edge and divided and against each other. But it has nothing to do with over witchcraft or anything. It was over tension in the church, and it's split. That's important to know because all this starts with Reverend Parris's daughters. There is 2 girls. One is actually a cousin. There is one daughter, Abigail Parris, and then Elizabeth Betsy Williams. So Betsy and Abigail are who the girls we're going to talk about. Betsy is age 9. Abigail is age 11. And one night at home, they both get in trouble. Dad is yelling at them. You're acting up, and they say, "A witch made us do it." At this point, a good parent has got that kid by the hair, going, "You're gonna pay for what you just did." No, who's believing a witch made you do it? Reverend Parris is the person who's going to believe a witch made you. You ever met that parent who can't believe their kid has done anything wrong, even when they're picking that kid up from the juvenile detention center. It's just Reverend Parrish is going to be that dad. And what happens is they say that the way they were acting, all this stuff, they blame it on a African American lady that had moved there. Her name was Tibia. And they said she brought her voodoo witchcraft from Africa, and she is being blamed for all of this. And Reverend Parrish goes and arrests Tibia and puts her in jail. And this is going to start the hysteria, because what happens is they bring the girls into the courtroom. They start to go through the trial about is she a witch, is she not a witch, and everything like that. And the girls would do things to make sure that the trial went their way. They said that they'd all of a sudden sit there and they go, oh, my hand's moving up. My hand's moving up. She's in charge of it. She's in charge of it. Oh, my goodness. And they put it back. Oh. They fall on the floor and act crazy and go, she made me do it. She made me do it. And the town is getting scared to death of this lady named Tibia. And so the biggest problem you want to see is these two young girls who, the girls in Puritan society, were the furthest down on the totem pole. And especially the young girls, the children girls, were so far down. They were the center of attention at this point, and those two little girls wouldn't back off of it. And so they go through all this hysteria about making it, and they start torturing Tibia. Tibia, because the book is true. If you torture somebody long enough, they will confess to being a witch. Tibia confesses to being a witch after a long bout with torture. At this point and everything, the girls then start to air out grievances, and now it's just like a big show. The first person they blame is, I'm sorry, with Tibia, I forgot to tell y'all, Tibia, she confesses to a lot of this stuff that you see in books and stuff. She confesses that they flew on brooms. She confesses that they read out of the devil's books. She confesses anything people thought about witches is what she confessed to. So if you ever just look at her confession, you can tell it is not. She's been tortured pretty good long. But now, like I said, the girls are wearing out their grievances. The first person they go after is a lady named Sarah Good. She is a beggar. She's not got a husband. She's begging on the streets. What had happened about a week before that, she had yelled at the girls because they were misbehaving. And so here, the girls are exacting their revenge, and they arrest Sarah Good, throw her in jail. It is going to get completely out of control at this point and everything. It's a lot of women you're going to see. There are going to be some men that are brought forward on charges and everything also. But the women, they believe that single women especially would be more enticed to marry the devil, join the devil, because they were looking for a mate. Although I've not met any girls that on Saturday night are like, I didn't find anybody out here. Try the devil. So, I mean, just doesn't seem like it's the smartest thing to think that they're going to, date the devil because they're a single woman. But that was one of the reasons it's a lot of women are going to be attacked in this. So let me keep on going off. Like I said, it sets off hysteria. You're going to have, it's not as many people die as you think is going to die. You're going to have 200 people arrested. There's going to be 200 cases. You're only going to have 19 actually hung and everything, and then a few more other ways we'll talk about at the end. But it's a lot of people being arrested. And here's the funny thing. It was a lot of people being arrested from the other church, from Reverend Burroughs' church, almost exclusively from that side of town. These two little girls are now airing grievances they've heard mommy and daddy talk about over the dinner table. So they are, exacting revenge on people. And here's the thing, Dad's loving it. He didn't like those people from that church and everything, and you pick them out and they're being thrown in jail. That's great for church attendance on his side. It is just, it was a snowball effect that just kept getting out of control, like I say. And then you go through a little period of time. It's not a crazy period of time, long period of time, but towards the end of it, this is what brings it down. They arrest Rebecca Nurse. She's age 77. She's Candy Grandma. Y'all know what a candy grandma is. Everybody goes to that lady at church, going to pull out candy. It may be 50-year-old candy, a lifesaver, something like that. But she got candy in her purse. That's a Rebecca Nurse, the sweet little old lady. And when they arrest her and throw a 77-year-old woman in chains, people were starting, okay, yeah, this isn't right. This isn't right. Then they arrest Deborah Good. She is the 4-year-old daughter of Sarah Good. That blows my mind. They literally had to go to the blacksmith and make special chains so they could chain up a 4-year-old because of what these two girls were just totally out of control, accusing anybody and everybody if they wanted to. Let's see. The ending, though, is going to come on August 9th of this year, when the girls accuse Reverend Burroughs, the pastor of the other church. Now, it is just, oh my word. The Reverend Burroughs, though, is the one who's going to end it and make it obvious that it is just the two little girls lying and everything. One of the things that book says, that book was written in 1460, is that a witch cannot recite the Lord's Prayer. And so Reverend Burroughs was sentenced for being a witch. He was brought out. He had the noose put around his neck. It was tightened up and everything. And they asked, any last words? And he said, Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done. And he's at that point, and Reverend Parris realizes, oh my goodness, you're just proving to everybody that this ain't real because you are reciting the Lord's Prayer. And he pulls the thing and hangs him anyhow, man. And so at this point, it is officially, yeah, this is going to be the ending of it because everybody realizes it's in the town now. Yeah, this is just Parris and his daughter and their cousin, and they are just wrecking havoc. The people get it. They actually accuse, before it's totally said and done, they accuse Reverend Burroughs' wife, but nobody arrests her. And at this point, then the governor of Massachusetts sends a letter saying, I heard what's going on. It has to stop now and everything. And the two little girls accuse the governor of being a witch. And at that point, it's, yeah, they go to the jails. They let everybody out. 50 people are in jail at this time. And so you will always hear over and over that 19 people died, 19 people died. And yes, 19 people is the number that were hung for being a witch in this time. But I got to give credit to some other people because if you died, there was 13 people died in prison. They're part of this number too then. We can refer to the 19, but 13 people were put in jail because they were left in there in these dungeon-type jails. I mean, you had a 4-year-old down in there. Now, I did look it up. The 4-year-old does get out. She does make it through and everything. But, oh my word, at that point. You had one man pressed to death. They would do this thing. And if you were convicted of murder, some kind of crime, they would bring you out and they would lay you down and lay a big piece of plywood on you. And then they would take stones, big heavy rocks, and start putting on top. And they put 2 or 3 big rocks on you and they just wait. And you're sitting there just hurting from all that. And then they'd add another rock. And then they'd wait and go swat. And then they'd add another rock. And they would add rocks until you literally couldn't breathe, and it would kill you, squish you to death in such pain. It's called being pressed to death. And they sentenced this one guy to be pressed to death. And they take him out. And the sheriff is in on this. He is in Reverend Parris's church, and that's one of the things that's really not good as they're arresting everybody from the other church. And the sheriff's got this guy down, putting the stones on him and everything. And he's giving the guy a hard time, telling him, you're going to da-da-da. And all of a sudden, the guy just looks up at the sheriff, and he puts a curse on him. He's like, listen, for what you've done to me, you and your family, you're all going to be cursed. The sheriff's office will always be cursed, da-da-da-da-da-da. And this is the only time that somebody actually is acting like a witch during the whole thing. But it's just a curse the guy's saying. But the guy's last words, he then looked up at the sheriff, and they said, any last word? And he said, more weight. And the sheriff actually jumped on top of the stones, and they said, like a toothpaste tube out, both sides at that point. And the guy completely died. I mean, his his eyes were blue. They blew out this way and blew out that way, as the way come down. So I'm just saying. So, but very interestingly, and I'll end on a spooky note and everything. Um, what's interesting is since they said that, and all the way back then, every sheriff of that town of Salem in office has died of something like a heart attack, killed in the line of duty. The sheriffs do not end up being able to retire from there without something happening to them. And I watched a special on the History Channel on it, and it was it was in like the 90s when they were doing, and it was still going on at that point. The new sheriff got elected, and it hadn't been broke yet. But one last note, good note on it, and I see I'm at the 20-minute mark, so I'm going to stop right here. 1697, the town actually declares a day of fasting because they realized they committed murder on a lot of people because of believing some lies. So for those of you who don't think your lies hurt people, you need to realize this whole Salem witch trial, that was the whole thing. So appreciate y'all. I'm looking forward to getting back there. I'm going to stop this right now.